Hi everyone, it's Judy, and this is my take. Today I'm going to be talking about the Democratic debate. Um, First of all, I thought that everybody was going to, kind of like be on fire and attack everyone else. And it seemed like, they were ready to do that. But I have to give it up to the moderators because they really called people out, and they really asked really hard questions and even asked for follow-ups when they weren't answering the questions. For example, the two progressive candidates are Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and they really got called out on, first of all, on their healthcare plans and how they were going to pay for them. And um, they really haven't been able to answer the 30 to 40 trillion dollar gap that they that there is there. And a lot of times you see them diverting back to, well, how are we going to pay for, or we spend a lot of money on the defense budget. And that's really like the line of defense that they keep going to. And it wasn't any different tonight. Let's see. It seemed like they really pushed back on Bernie a lot. And I don't know if Bernie really had that great of a night, because the first thing that they talked about was about the trade deals. And they asked him, the lady from the Des Moines Register asked him about Trump's trade deal with Mexico, and how he had admitted that there was moderate improvements. And the lady asked him, if there's moderate improvements, why are you not onto it? Why wouldn't you sign on to it? And he said that, well, it doesn't include a lot of climate change stuff that he would like to see in it. And so she said, so are you saying that you wouldn't compromise, even though it has affected, all these farmers, especially in Iowa? And really, honestly, he kind of pivoted on that. And it just goes to show kind of what I've been saying, that a lot of the progressives are, they don't see, they call themselves progressive, but anytime that there's progress, they just want all or nothing. So basically, if they don't get all that they want nothing at all. And that can be harmful too. And you're talking about, you're in Iowa, and this is important to Iowans. So it would have been nice to see them kind of put the Iowans at the forefront and say, well, I would be, if we made some modifications or whatever to include this or that. But ultimately, it's about what can pass in the Congress. And if this already passed and everything, then, what would be the point of just getting rid of it? There wouldn't be a point, and it would actually end up hurting people in the short term. And I know that they're thinking about the long term. However, a lot of people are not thinking that far ahead. So let's see. Then the whole feud that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders had, that was undoubtedly going to come up in the debates. And Bernie denied, saying that a woman could not be president. And Elizabeth, she said that it was true, but she didn't go after him for it, which honestly could have been a mistake, but maybe she didn't want to, keep seeming like there's this big rift between them, and just probably wanted to just end the whole thing anyways. Um, but he did seem kind of weird about this whole thing. He said that he made some comment that he unseated a Republican 30 years ago. And anyways, that whole thing was just kind of a little odd. Let's see. They asked about the gap, the 30 to 40 trillion dollar gap. Then the moderators ask, why does it make sense for government to be in charge of manufacturing drugs with their bad track record of, you know, doing business? And they directed that question to Elizabeth Warren. And Warren's answer was, well, we're going to provide competition. And so the competition will drive their prices down. I think that at face value, that seems okay. However, how are you going to sell that to people who don't want the government to be in charge of all this stuff? And I don't know, it just seems like there's other ways. She had touched on a subject that I have talked about where, these high prices are because these companies like the EpiPen and all that, they get patents from the government and they hold on to them and they drive the price up, and no one else has the opportunity to have patents to them. And that would be one way. Like, if you're in charge of providing these patents, maybe make them, instead of having like a 10-year patent, hey, make your money in the next 2 years, and then we're going to give this patent to everyone. Like, we're going to let people use it, and that's it. And that way there's real competition. There's actual capitalistic competition, how it's supposed to be and how the country is supposed to run most effectively when private companies compete with each other, instead of the government, picking and choosing winners and then being in charge or being the competition themselves. I don't know, that just doesn't make sense. It should be government steps out of the way and lets people do what they should, be doing. And government should step in if things are unfair like they are right now, which is like $800 for an EpiPen, life-saving stuff. I think the corporations have gone a little too far, like way too far on that, honestly. They talked about affordable childcare. I don't really see that anyone had really a big thing about that. And then, let's see, the moderators called out Pete's lack of black voter support. And I don't really think that he effectively answered how he would get black voters to support him. He said that the ones that know him do support him, and that's all fine and dandy, but ultimately you're gonna need that. They called out Sanders on how 2/3 of the Democrat voters don't want a socialist. And he said, they're like, how are you going to overcome that when you're running against Trump? And he's like, oh, you're a socialist. And his answer was basically to say that he would educate people on what actual democratic socialism means. And that's all fine and dandy. You can hope to educate people, but I think that people just have this idea of what it is, and you're not going to change it, honestly. It's just not going to happen at this time. So you're going to get your supporters, and I don't know if anybody else would be willing to really step out of that comfort zone to vote for a self-proclaimed socialist. Let's see. I thought Pete did a great job on answering how he would take on Trump, and he said that, when Trump stands next to a veteran, he has to answer how his bone spurs kept him from serving his country. And then that if he brings religion into this whole thing, he would sit there and tell the voters the true definition of Christianity, and how God doesn't belong to one party. And I thought that was a great answer, honestly. That was like a real strength of his. Let's see. They asked Biden, are you prepared for Trump, and how he plays dirty, basically. And I thought it was funny that he said, well, he's had an affection for me or whatever. And he really has. He talked about, I like that he talked about the working class. This is one thing that I thought was lacking in the talking points tonight. I think that Biden and Amy Klobuchar really did a great job of including those Democrats, those blue dog Democrats who have felt disaffected and who have felt like they are the forgotten people. And those are the ones that Trump ended up siphoning off during the last election. So, and then they're in Iowa where there's working people. So I think that they did a very good job of speaking to those people, speaking to the Democrats and those Democrats who are kind of feeling like their party is moving too much to the left. I think they did a good job of, saying, hey, we're still that party and we're the candidate that'll bring you guys back into the fold. So I thought that was great, especially where they were. Let's see. I thought Amy Klobuchar had a good statement. I like how she calls out people, and she did that without like seeming snarky, and that's kind of hard to do, and she did it. Let's see. Biden had a good closing statement. I thought Pete did as well. I mean, everyone's closing statement was pretty much like what they always say, their signature stuff. And so anyways, this video is kind of long, but that is my take on the whole debate. I think that this isn't really going to move the needle much. I think that it's really going to come down to the four main people right now in Iowa, Biden, Bernie, Warren, and Pete Buttigieg. And it's a really tight race or in the polls. So it's just going to be probably a matter of like 1 or 2 points between any one of them. So it's going to be exciting, and I hope that you guys enjoyed my video. Sorry it's so long. Please give my video a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.